Perak HaMekabel Sada MeChaveroi Daf Kuf Yud Beis, sponsored L'Refuah Shlema for Tinoik Ben Chaya. To review, there are three opinions concerning the application of the lav of Leisolin and the mitzvah essay of Yomi Titein Scharoi, delaying payment for a worker who finished his job, the rental of animals and utensils, and the payment for a ger toshav. Tanakama the Brisa holds the three categories fall under the lav of Leisolin and the essay of Yomi Titein Scharoi. Rabbi Yehoshua holds only a worker falls under the category of both, but animals and utensils fall under the prohibition of lo sashoy. For the ger toshav, he is only in violation of Yomi Titein Scharoi. The Tan of our Mishnah holds only a ger toshav is an exception to the lav of Leisolin. Gemara explained that our Tana does not learn the Gzerah of Sachir, but includes animals and kelim in the prohibition of Leisolin based on the word itcha, but excludes a ger toshav based on the word reyecha. The Gemara today explains what the other opinions learned from these words itcha reyecha. Number one, the word reyecha, in addition to the word achicha, excludes an Amalekite from the prohibition of theft and retention of wages. Number two, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda learns from the term itcha that the prohibition of delaying applies even to a worker hired to cut just one cluster of grapes. Number three, our Tana learns the previous law from ve'elav hu noisei es nafshay, meaning any job the worker commits to do, even cutting one cluster. Number four, Rabbi Yossi and the Tanakama learn from ve'elav hu noisei es nafshay, either the worker sometimes endangers himself for his wage, or by delaying payment, the employer puts the worker's life at risk. The next law of the Mishnah the Gemara discusses is the prohibition of leisolin. Depends on the worker demanding his wage. The word itcha teaches three laws. Number one, it means lidatcha, with your will the money is being held back, but not by will of the worker. Number two, it means it is with the employer. He has the money to pay. Number three, it means the employer and worker are still together. If the employer directed him to a storekeeper or money changer to receive his wage, he is not liable. The Gemara questions if he is directed to another for compensation, but is not compensated, can the worker return to the employer for his wage? Rav Sheshes holds he cannot return. Rabbah holds he can return. The Gemara now questions if contractual work, like day work, falls under the prohibition of leisolin. The Gemara explains the question is based on whether uman kone shvach kli. Does a craftsman acquire his improvements, becoming a partial owner, or not? If he acquires, his wage results from selling the improvements to the employer, or he does not acquire the improvements. His payment is no different than a wage earner. Rav Sheshes holds he does violate the lav of leisolin. The Gemara now discusses the law of the Mishnah that a worker who demands his wage when it is due can swear the money is owed to him and collect. The Gemara refers to this as a takana kavua, a lasting takana, meaning one worthwhile establishing, even though it uproots biblical law. Generally, monetary disputes involving an oath, the defendant swears to exonerate himself. The Chachamim instituted disputes involving workers' wages. The worker instead is entitled to swear to collect his wage. Their concern was the employer preoccupied with his workers would mistakenly swear falsely, thinking he paid. The alternative of having witnesses present when he pays is too burdensome. Having the employer pay when he hires and not preoccupied is not always feasible. The Mishnah limits a worker to swear and collect only when the money is due, not after the deadline. If the employer is suspect, he should be able to swear even after the deadline. The Gemara answers that the employer has two presumptions in his favor. One is he will not violate the prohibition of leisolin, and the other is the worker will not postpone collecting his wage. The worker has only one presumption in his favor: he is not a thief. The Gemara concludes that if witnesses testify that he claimed his wages up to the deadline, he can swear and collect only the day following the deadline. If you're enjoying Daf 5, please subscribe.